My friends, it is over. The final two reports of the Zondo Commission has been published and publicized. And at the heart of these reports is an official commission to state that the ANC itself is at the heart of practically all corruption in South Africa. It is not the Guptas, it is not just Jacob Zuma, it is not third forces. The ANC itself is the main vector of corruption within the Republic of South Africa. So now that Zondo has confirmed what we already know as citizens of this country, explanations and introspection from those who are sympathetic to the ANC are coming out as well. And what you are finding through these explanations, especially from former members of the ANC, is that the ANC has completely lost the plot. The ANC has become corrupted and has betrayed its original liberation roots. In essence, the ANC was pure, but its soul has now been lost. But is this actually true? Has the ANC descended from a moral authority to the corrupt patronage network it is today? Or was the plunder evident from the start of the ANC? To answer that question, we have to go back in history. And the most important thing to know about the ANC is that it is a liberation movement. And liberation movements, whether it be in Africa, in Asia, or South America, have a foundational charter. And for the ANC, the foundational charter is the Freedom Charter. Drafted in 1955 by white communists, the Freedom Charter actually allows large-scale looting at a huge national level. For example, there are clauses that call for the wealth of the country to be returned to the people, and also for the mineral wealth below the soil, for all the banks and all the factories to be nationalized and returned for the sake of the people of South Africa. So if you read those clauses from the Freedom Charter, you can only imagine how this would actually happen in real life. The wealth must be taken by the state and then redistributed to the people. But this can only happen once the liberation movement becomes the state. So it is the liberation movement, i.e. the ANC, which determines how much wealth is actually redistributed. So in essence, the scale of the redistribution depends entirely on the morality of the ANC when it takes over as government. But unfortunately for the ANC, it is filled with people who weren't given a shot during the apartheid regime. The ANC is filled with intellectuals who were denied opportunities because of their race, and most importantly, were denied from money-making opportunities due to their race as well. They were treated like children, unable to control a modern economy. And therefore, they were left out of most of the decision-making of the South Africa of the past, and also out of the economy of the South Africa of the past as well. And therefore, due to this lack of opportunity during the apartheid regime, the ANC has brought about a narrative about itself as being the vanguard of the masses and being the political party and the liberation movement that will give the wealth back to the people through itself, of course. And in order to do that, they need the National Democratic Revolution. And the National Democratic Revolution, to put it in very simple terms, is a strategy used by the ANC to expropriate all the wealth from white South Africans and to give it to black South Africans. It is as simple as that. So if you combine all of those factors, the inability to build wealth during the apartheid regime, the extractive nature of the National Democratic Revolution, and also the nationalization clauses of the Freedom Charter, what you have is an ANC that gains power in 1994, controls the wealthiest country in the continent of Africa, and sees itself as the vanguard and the liberation movement which will give the wealth back to the poor. But all of that, of course, requires some form of compensation for the ANC. They've been locked out of opportunity. They need some compensation for that as well. And compensated, they certainly became. Now that we are past the Jacob Zuma era of the presidency, we tend to forget about the arms deal. But the arms deal was the original sin of the ANC once it came into power. And the effects of the arms deal are still felt today, and arguably was the foundation for everything that came afterwards. Just to give you a bit of context, the arms deal was basically a scheme to replenish the South African National Defence Force. It happened only 4 years after the ANC came into government, and Nelson Mandela himself signed the release to make the arms deal a reality. And the problem with the arms deal is not that it took place, that was inevitable. The problem with the arms deal was that the ANC removed every single check and balance they would hold themselves to account. For example, long after the fact, when Parliament itself requested an investigation into the arms deal, with the Public Protector, the Scorpions and the Special Investigations Unit Thabo Mbeki himself, who was president at the time, declined to appoint the Special Investigation Unit at all, which was his purview as president. And once the report by Parliament was finally released to the public, it was so watered down and sanitized that it bore very little resemblance to reality at all. In fact, some members of the ANC resigned in protest, claiming that several ANC members and the party in general used their positions to make sure that the report was largely exculpatory. Of course, today we now know that many members of the ANC received bribes for the contracts for the arms deal, and also that the processes were fiddled with to make those contractors who paid the bribes to get the deals in the first place. But despite the extremely corrupt nature of the arms deal, no one has actually gone to prison for any of it. No one has actually been held to any form of judicial prosecution, except of course Shabir Shaik, who was let off on medical parole not too long after his prosecution. So once again, the arms deal was the foundation for all the corruption that came afterwards. And the arms deal happened when Nelson Mandela was president and also when Thabo Mbeki was president. And those two people made sure that the ANC could never be punished for the very serious crimes of corruption while it was still in office. And also, the arms deal made us extremely aware that the ANC had absolutely no intention of redistributing the wealth to the poorest of our country. They wanted it all for themselves. One of the greatest statesmen of the 20th century, Lee Kuan Yew, the former Singaporean Prime Minister, once said, "Many communist activists who felt that they had been deceived and had wasted their best years of their lives set out to make up for lost time and enrich themselves in every which way they could." He was of course describing the Chinese Communist Party, but this also happened under various communist regimes across Asia. For example, it happened in Vietnam, and also, of course, it happened during the course of the Soviet Union. Once communists, and especially communists in power, saw the implosion of the Berlin Wall, saw the Soviet Union falling apart, they felt deceived. Their ideology of choice has turned out to be mostly a mirage. And importantly, they spent many years of their lives trying to fulfill the conditions of this particular ideology, but it all crumbled right in front of them. So to make themselves and their broken ideology whole again, they took the accumulation of wealth as a moral duty to themselves, and often using the very same communist mantras of their days as liberation movements. And the ANC is no different in this respect. Using the National Democratic Revolution as a means to an end, the ANC has purposefully re-engineered the state as a funding mechanism for the ANC's own needs. So you have all the elements of the struggle and all the elements of the rapacious accumulation of wealth becoming one and the same. But unlike most other countries, the rapacious accumulation of wealth in South Africa was never a problem until Jacob Zuma became president. And most importantly, when the economy of South Africa stalled. But by then, it was completely too late to change course. The rampant looting has set South Africa on a course of deindustrialization that cannot ever hope to be stopped. And today, South Africa is a shell of its former self. It is one of the most violent countries in the world. It has one of the highest unemployment rates in the world and one of the poorest education systems the world has ever known. So in conclusion to this video, no, the ANC did not betray its struggle credentials. It actually doubled down on their struggle credentials and wanted to be compensated for the struggle that they supposedly won. And by using their communist ideology and by using the Freedom Charter and the National Democratic Revolution, the ANC ensured that itself was at the center of the economy of South Africa. And since they were struggle stalwart and struggle heroes, they wanted compensation at all costs. And believe me, they have been extremely well compensated to the detriment of everything else in the country, of course.